first time I heard the drilling rig start up, I felt relief more than anything else. After months of back and forth with the HOA, the permits, the drought warnings, it was finally happening. The well was my ticket to keeping our garden alive and my water bill sane. The morning sun was just spilling over the rooftops, painting everything gold, and the sound of that diesel engine humming felt like progress. Until I saw her. Karen, not the name on her driver's license, but the one everyone in the neighborhood used in hushed tones. Short, sharp haircut, oversized sunglasses, clipboard in hand like a sheriff of the suburbs. She power walked across the street like she was storming a crime scene. "Excuse me," she barked, waving a finger at the drill operator. "You can't do that here. This is against HOA regulations." The worker looked at me like I should handle it. I sighed, wiping the dust from my jeans. "Morning, Karen," I said, already bracing myself. "It's perfectly legal. I have city approval right here." She snatched the paper from my hand without asking, her lips twisting as she scanned it. This doesn't mean anything. You need HOA approval. You can't just dig up community property." I gestured at my fenced backyard. "This isn't community property, Karen. It's literally my backyard." She scoffed. "That's debatable." That's when I knew this wasn't going to end with a conversation. It was going to be a saga. Within minutes, she was on her phone, pacing like a general before battle. "Yes, I'd like to report an illegal construction. They're drilling without authorization," she said, shooting me a smug look. Yes, in Maplewood Estates. "Thank you." The drilling paused. My contractor frowned, waiting for my cue. "Keep going," I told him quietly. "She doesn't run the city." Karen spun toward me, gasping. "Excuse me, I'm on the board. You will stop that right now or face fines." The machine roared back to life, drowning out her protests. She stomped away, muttering about violations and neighborhood standards. By the afternoon, 3 HOA board members had shown up. Clipboards, polos, and all. They gathered in front of my fence like they were holding a summit. Karen stood in the middle, arms crossed, smirking. One of them, Mr. Dawson, cleared his throat. "We'll be contacting the city. Until this is resolved, we recommend halting the project." Karen looked victorious. I just smiled faintly. "Sure," I said. "Call whoever you want. I'll be here, waiting for the truth to dig itself up." I didn't realize how deep this would go, or how public it would get, because 2 days later, a city truck showed up at my driveway, and Karen was standing right beside it, beaming like she'd just won a war. The city truck pulled up with that slow, deliberate authority. Yellow lights flashing, engine idling like it had all the time in the world. Karen was already waiting at the curb, arms folded, lips pressed into a self-satisfied line. You could tell she'd been rehearsing this moment in her head all morning. "Good morning, officer," she said as the city inspector stepped out. "I'm glad you're here. This homeowner is violating multiple HOA ordinances and possibly state code." The inspector, a middle-aged man named Ruiz according to his badge, adjusted his sunglasses and looked between us. He didn't look amused. "Ma'am, we received a report about unauthorized drilling. Who's the property owner here?" I raised a hand. "That would be me, and it's fully permitted by the city. I can show you the documents again." Karen cut in, practically vibrating. "He's trying to bypass HOA authority. The bylaws clearly state that any ground modification needs board approval. He's disrupting neighborhood harmony." Ruiz gave her a slow, measured look that said he'd heard enough HOA drama to last a lifetime. "Ma'am," he interrupted, "I'm here to verify city code, not HOA preferences. Those are two very different things." Karen blinked, clearly not expecting resistance. But I called the city. This is a city matter." Ruiz turned toward the drilling rig, scanning the area with professional detachment. "From what I see, this setup looks standard. Let's check the paperwork." I handed him the folder. He flipped through it carefully, nodding as he read the signatures and seals. "Well," he said finally, "this is valid. Everything seems in order." The look on Karen's face could have frozen lava. "What? That can't be right. There's no way they'd approve that kind of equipment here." Ruiz remained calm. "Ma'am, private wells are permitted under city code as long as groundwater access is within regulation limits." He followed the process. Karen's voice rose an octave. "But it's unsightly. It's noisy. It ruins property values. This neighborhood has standards." I couldn't help it. A laugh slipped out. Karen, the only thing lowering property values is your attitude. Ruiz shot me a quick warning glance, but I could see the hint of a smirk forming at the edge of his mouth. He turned back to her. If you have a complaint about aesthetics, that's an HOA issue, not a city one. You'll need to handle that internally. I smiled, leaning on the fence, looking forward to it. Maybe next time bring coffee. It's a long process, you know. She stomped off, heels clicking like gunfire down the sidewalk. But she wasn't bluffing. By that evening, I had a formal cease and desist letter from the HOA taped to my door, signed by Karen herself, in bright red ink. And the next day, she'd call for something far bigger than the city inspector. She was about to bring in the state. Karen stood there, red-faced, sputtering like her words had jammed halfway out. The inspector nodded politely at me. You're good to continue. Just make sure the safety markers stay visible. As he walked back to his truck, Karen snapped. This isn't over. You'll be hearing from the board. By the next morning, I could hear the tone of the neighborhood had changed. Curtains moved when I walked past. Neighbors whispered over mailboxes, and every few minutes, someone slowed down their car to peek at the drilling rig still parked behind my fence. That's when I saw her again. Karen, standing near the end of the cul-de-sac in a neatly pressed beige suit, talking animatedly to two people wearing state environmental badges. I exhaled slowly. So, this is how far she's willing to go. I watched as they pointed toward my property, nodding along while Karen gestured wildly like a courtroom attorney on her fifth espresso. Then, they started walking toward me. Good morning, one of them said, a younger man with a tablet in hand. I'm with the State Department of Environmental Resources. We received a report of an unlicensed groundwater drilling operation in this area. I nodded calmly, though my pulse quickened. Ah, Karen again, I assume. The second inspector, a woman with a kind but weary look, checked her file. That name has come up a few times this month, she murmured under her breath. Karen rushed forward. You need to shut this down. This man is drilling without environmental clearance. He's going to drain our aquifers. There are birds nesting nearby. I raised an eyebrow. Birds, Karen? Really? I'm drilling 40 feet below your begonias, not setting off fireworks. The younger inspector lifted his tablet. Let's review the coordinates. He scanned the permit data I handed him, the same folder that had already survived the HOA and the city. His eyes moved quickly, his tone steady. Everything checks out here. Licensed contractor, correct distance from municipal lines, environmental clearance filed last month. It's legitimate. Karen froze mid-rant. That can't be right. I spoke to someone at the department. The female inspector nodded, closing the file. Yes, we reviewed your earlier complaint. It was determined there was no violation. You could almost hear the crack in her voice. No violation, she repeated, stepping back. But he's ruining the entire aesthetic of the neighborhood. The sound, the equipment, the dust. You can't just ignore that. The inspector met her gaze evenly. Ma'am, our job is environmental compliance, not landscaping preferences. His project is within state law. There's nothing further to investigate. Karen's face went pale. Her voice dropped to a trembling whisper. So, he just gets away with it. I couldn't resist. Gets away with what, Karen? Having running water? The inspectors exchanged an amused glance. Sir, the woman said gently, you're cleared to continue. We'll be closing this case today. As they walked off, Karen stayed rooted to the sidewalk, staring at the ground like the world had betrayed her. For the first time since this circus began, she looked small, not angry, not loud, just defeated. But that moment of silence wouldn't last, because when the well finally hit water the next day, when the geyser of clear cold water burst up into the light, Karen completely lost control. She called an emergency HOA meeting, and she demanded that the illegal well be filled in. The sound of water hitting metal was the most satisfying thing I'd heard in months. That deep whoosh when the drill finally broke through. Pure music. My contractor grinned, wiping sweat off his brow. You've got good pressure here, he said. Real clean source, too. I smiled. Perfect. But that moment of calm didn't last long, because as I turned toward the street, there she was again, Karen, storming up the driveway like she was leading a protest march. Behind her trailed 3 HOA board members, phones out, recording like they were documenting a scandal. "Stop this immediately!" she screamed over the hum of the rig. "This water belongs to the community. You're stealing from everyone." I stared, dumbfounded. "Karen, this isn't a water heist. It's a private well, 40 feet below my property. You can't steal groundwater from yourself." One of the board members, Mr. Dawson, stepped forward nervously. "Look, maybe we can come to some understanding. Karen says the HOA bylaws require prior written approval." I cut him off. "Those bylaws don't override state or city law. You know that, right?" Karen jabbed a finger at me. "We'll fine you. We'll put a lien on your house if we have to." I almost laughed. For obeying the law, that's when the sheriff's cruiser turned the corner. You could feel the collective tension shift. Karen's voice faltered as the vehicle stopped in front of my house, lights flashing silently. The deputy stepped out, one hand resting on his belt. "Afternoon, folks. We got a call about a disturbance." Karen rushed to him like she'd just been rescued. "Yes, officer. He's illegally drilling a well and violating HOA regulations. We need you to shut it down." The deputy looked at her, then at me. "You the homeowner?" "Yeah," I said, handing over the same folder that had now seen more action than my car registration. "All permits are valid, city approved, state cleared." He flipped through them, nodded once, then looked at Karen. "Mom, this is all legal. You can't interfere with a permitted project. If you continue to disrupt the work, you could be charged with obstruction." The silence that followed was perfect. Karen's jaw dropped. "Obstruction! I'm trying to protect our neighborhood." The deputy's voice stayed calm, but firm. "Mom, what you're doing right now is harassment. You need to leave the property immediately." Her lower lip trembled. You could see the tears gathering, the realization dawning that her authority had finally met its limit. "This isn't fair," she whispered, voice cracking. "We have rules for a reason." "Yeah," I said softly, "and the rest of us have rights for a reason." The board members looked at one another, uncomfortable. One of them muttered, "Maybe we went too far," before slowly backing away. Karen stood there a moment longer, eyes glistening, until finally she turned and walked off. Slower this time, smaller somehow. The deputy gave me a polite nod. "You're good to go, sir. Just try to keep things peaceful." "I'm trying," I said, smiling faintly. But peace isn't really her strong suit. He chuckled and drove off. As the sun dipped behind the houses, the drill shut down, and a quiet calm filled the air. The new well gleamed in the fading light, clean, powerful, and undeniably mine. A few days later, a letter arrived from the city, final approval, stamped and signed. I framed it in my office, a little reminder that sometimes the best revenge is paperwork. And as for Karen, she hasn't spoken to me since, but every morning when she walks her dog past my house, I see her glance at that well, the one she fought so hard to stop. And I swear I catch her muttering to herself, something about regret, or maybe just the sound of running water.